I'm Corbett Wall with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, May the 15th, brought to you in part by Specialty Risk Insurance. They're a full-service insurance team headquartered in Carthage, Missouri, right on the other side of I-44 from Joplin Regional Stockyards. They are one of the top ag business insurance agencies in the nation. Their whole team is dedicated to this industry. They can help you with pretty much any insurance need that you could want or even dream of. They can help you with commercial, crop insurance, personal insurance, ag business, farm and ranch, construction, employee benefits even, trucking, livestock insurance, anything that you might be interested in, they can take care of it. Sale barns, they can take care of you from one end to the other. And it'll be a lot cheaper than what you're used to. For more information, go to specialtyrisk.com. Key reversal, and if you guys watch the cattle futures on Wednesday, you know what I'm talking about, and I'm not going to pretend to know everything there is to know about technical analytics. In fact, I don't know a whole lot, and I'm kind of glad that I don't. But there was a key reversal on Wednesday. The board was just acting kind of weird, both on live cattle and feeder cattle, and just back and forth there, and was shaking around, and then went up like it was going to go up, like it has been for almost every session for the last few weeks, and then plunged right before the close. And apparently that's a key reversal there. The technical analysts are saying that this market is overbought, which, yeah, no kidding. You know, it's been going up, straight up here for a long time. But they're saying that these signals are very bearish. And the heck of it is, when you're talking about bearish signals, everybody that's on the long side of the cattle futures are technical watchers. They're not too much interested in the fundamentals. They don't think that they ring true enough, and they're probably right. And that's what makes us so frustrated, because we like to watch the fundamentals. And so they're all on the technicals, and they're the ones that are holding the board up on the long side, because as an industry we put so much pressure on the board on the downside. And of course, everybody that's been doing that's been getting margin calls like crazy. And they've got a lot of money invested in this market, but whenever they do see a signal to go one way or the other, they all react to it the same. And you know, I've always kind of had a trouble with studying the charts and then thinking that they were going to ring true. But the hell of it is, when everybody reacts to the signals the same way, especially when they're bearish, likely your futures market's going to be lower here, and will be under pressure here going forward. Now, so the winds are just changing a little bit, and so instead of people being bullish, we've still got people on the fundamental side staying bullish, because our supply and demand fundamentals are still bullish. But now that we got some pretty serious bearish technicals out there, we're probably not going to see this nice smooth landing that we were wanting whenever we got to the peak of the market. It's likely going to be volatile. People are going to say, oh my God, you see that signal it put out that was bearish, and everybody's selling the futures, and of course your fundamentals and your speculators, they can't wait to ride this thing down. I mean, they've been watching it go up and up and up and up, and farther than anybody ever dreamed, and reaching all-time record highs. They cannot wait to get on this thing and ride it down, because usually it goes down a hell of a lot faster than it went up. And so that's fast money for them. But as bullish as our fundamental supply and demand indicators are, it's likely going to be very volatile. You know, they'll dogpile it and it'll go down, and then we'll see our cash prices staying good because we just don't have hardly any supplies of anything, and then it'll bounce back up, and you know, that's kind of a frustrating way to reach, but I believe that that's probably what we're in store for here. as we're nearing the top. Everybody knows we're nearing the top. The air's getting really thin up here. We've seen prices that nobody ever dreamed that we would see. It's been a lot of fun. In fact, it's still going to be a lot of fun, you know. I was talking with one of my friends today, and I said, you know, this thing wouldn't hurt it to be 2 or 3 lower here for a few weeks, you know, on a weekly trend. And he said, hell, it wouldn't hurt it to be $10 lower for several weeks, and it'd still be really good. And that's true. But likely we see a key reversal like this, and the winds are changing direction. And so we're just going to be pretty volatile here for a while, and don't blame me if we don't start easing off of this. But I don't want to be a downer, and some of you guys think that I pull so much weight that I can take this market down. I'm just telling you what everybody's saying out in the country and what the temperature is. A sale here that's today that's going to be very impressive that you want to check out, guys, especially if you need some big feeders, is Enid Livestock Market in Enid, Oklahoma. Now, you guys may not be familiar with that sale, but you remember that facility. It's probably been there 30 plus years. I mean, they built one hell of a facility thinking that that was a perfect place to have a feeder cattle auction, and it is a good place to have a feeder cattle auction there. But several different entities tried to make that fancy facility work and never could make it work. Then along come Dakota Davis down from just up in the edge of Kansas, and he's a young guy, he's aggressive, he's a God-fearing guy, he's honest, people like him, and he hustles, and he's made a go of it, guys. They're going to have somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 head today at the Mausoleum at the Enid Livestock Market there in Enid, Oklahoma. It's going to be a hell of a sale. They got 600 cows, and not a special cow sale, just 600 cows, weigh up cows. They're going to start those at 9 o'clock in the morning, and then they'll be on feeders. If they're done by noon, they'll get on the feeders at noon. If not, as soon as they get done, right after lunchtime there, they'll get on the feeders, but they're going to have a lot of them, guys. Probably over 2,000 head of yearling steers, most of them weighing 8.5 to 1,000 pounds. He said there's 4 loads for sure that's going to weigh over 1,000, but they'll be right off the wheat, and all these cattle will be right off the wheat and have a green condition. These cattle have just gained their heads off on the wheat. Probably have close to 2,000 head of yearling heifers. Sure be 15 load lots of heifers weighing from 600 to 800 pounds there. But a really impressive sale at Enid Livestock Market in Enid, Oklahoma. If you need some feeder cattle, get in there. They've got them, guys. And if you can't get to the sale, get on to DVAuction.com. Call them in the office a little bit early. Get approved. You'll want to bid on some of those cattle in there. They're really nice, right off the wheat locally, guys. Let's talk about your board on Wednesday. Of course, we talked about it at length here at the start of this report, but June live cattle futures down 237 at 213.95. August down 2 1/4 at 209.37. Your back months on live cattle down 195 to down 220. Feeder cattle for May down 3 1/4 at 299.57. August down 402. You know, we had some big ups there early in the week, but man, these are sharp losses, and they all happened right there at the end of the trading session. But down 402 in the August at 301.97. You guys sure might be wanting to look at some of these protection levels on the LRPs, guys, because we could lose them. Your back months on feeder cattle down 287 to down 407. July corn was up 3 cents a bushel at 445.5. July beans up 5 1/4 cents at 1077 3/4. Hard red winter wheat for July up 11 1/4 cents a bushel at 523. Your fat cattle trade started a little bit on Wednesday, but not enough to really establish a market. But I have no doubt that the fat cattle market on a cash basis will be higher again this week. Even if the board goes down, we've still got supply and demand fundamentals in our cash markets. And I'm not saying that the feeder cattle markets are going to be lower, and I don't think they're going to sell cash direct fed cattle any lower. They sold a few in Iowa, about 900 head on Wednesday. They sold just maybe less than 100 more than that total for the week. But your live sales in Iowa were 229. That's sure fully steady. And dress sales from 355 to 358. That's strong. Nebraska sold 550 head on Wednesday. Live price the same, 229 and 358. Now the Southern Plains is asking significantly more than they got for their cattle last week. Last week's trade was mostly 219. It did have a few sales at 220, but they're thinking they're going to get maybe 225 or 226. They probably should have been trying to gain that last week instead of trading their cattle, on Tuesday and Wednesday, just moderately higher, because that may be a big ask this week. We'll see. Hope they get it. But no trade so far in Kansas and Texas. Did have a couple of fat cattle auctions there. Sioux Falls Regional Livestock in Worthing, South Dakota had 650 head, all classes of slaughter cattle. Conventional fed cattle sold mostly steady from 226 to 230. Program cattle had spots of as much as $6 higher, with your non-implanted or drug-free cattle from 228 to 238. That's big. How about Glacial Lakes Livestock in Watertown, South Dakota? They had a good run, 550 head of slaughter cattle there. Conventional fed cattle in Watertown sell from 216 to 227. That was $3 to $4 higher. Program cattle from 227 to 230, 450. It's impressive. That Holstein steers there, fed Holsteins from 171 to 180, and big fat fed cows from 155 to 165. Box beef cutout values were mixed, with choice cuts down 74 cents at 349.36. Your selects were up $1.38 at 335.85. Slaughter up through the first 3 days of the week, pretty disappointing, 339,000. That's 10,000 less than the same point last week, 23,000 less than the same point a year ago this week. Talk about what else is going on. Legacy Beef Cooperative. We talk about them all the time. Become a member. It's relatively inexpensive to become a member of Legacy Beef Co-op. The co-op will own a 20% share in the new Cattleman's Heritage Beef plant going up near Council Bluffs, Iowa. The efficiencies in this new plant are going to make them very competitive. I've seen some of it and heard them talk about it, and it's just going to be very impressive how efficient this plant can be. So I had a good conversation there with James Timmerman a few weeks ago, and we videoed it. You probably watched it, but if you haven't, I'm going to attach the video interview that I did with James Timmerman, who is in charge of Legacy Beef Co-op, at the end of this feeder flash. But for more information, go to legacybeefcoop.com. Let's talk about your feeder cattle market, brought to you by Specialty Risk Insurance, working to protect your livelihood. Look at your real-time index based on 800-pound cash auction steer up through your middle 12 states. Of course, it's been running up, and I told you guys it would break $3, and it did, and so then I took credit for that a little bit, but it retreated some on Wednesday here because there was a lot of commodity cattle. Not that the market was any lower, just a lot of plainer commodity cattle in comparison to the really fancy green cattle that we've been selling, and the numbers of them just pulled it down. But your real-time index after your sales on Wednesday were all closed, set at 301.63. That was down 103. Your latest CME cash feeder cattle index is above that now at 302.41, but it will be falling next time it comes out. Another sale that's coming up here, don't forget about Clarinda Livestock Auction in Clarinda, Iowa. They've got a good run, 2,400, maybe more feeder cattle up there. They got a couple loads of 8-weight yearling steers, but most of the run's going to be weaned fall calves. In fact, they've got one string of 700 fancy weaned black fall calves come from Dearborn, Missouri, come up there to Clarinda to sell, and that'll be a really good sale. It's on DVAuction.com. Also, don't forget about the big mixed bull sale there at Stockman's Livestock Exchange in Dickinson, North Dakota. They're going to have like 200 herd bulls, all different breeds there. If you haven't already got one, or you need a cleanup, you need an insurance policy, get in there. They're on DVAuction.com. They've got some bred cows and pairs too, and that's here on Thursday. Let's talk about your big sales on Wednesday. OKC West, El Reno, Oklahoma, had 12,500 head, mostly feeders on Wednesday. They did have calves on Tuesday, but a much lighter run of the calves. But your feeder steers in El Reno sold $2 to $5 higher on a really good test. Some of the 7 and 8 weight steers were mostly steady. Of course, we've been seeing them skyrocket because they had dual interest in them, either to go to the feed yard or to turn back out. Feeder heifers are $2 to $8 higher. Most of your gains on your feeder heifers were on the bigger heifers weighing over 800 pounds. Calves sold $8 to $12 higher on Tuesday, with your peewee calves not gaining near that much. They were only steady to $3 higher on your peewees weighing under 4.5. But really good test of the market in El Reno. They're a DV auction broadcaster. We're proud to be have them on our team. Was your National Beef Wire stick out sale of the day. Check out these well-tested weights of feeder cattle here on this automated market report through Cattle Market Central. Look at 1,169 head of 7-weight steers. They averaged 766 with a weighted average price of $304.27. 1,278 head in El Reno only. That's more than a lot of sales have total. 8-weight steers. They averaged $859 with an average price of $283.76. There were 2,166 head of steers in El Reno that weighed in the 9-weight category. You think these wheat cattle didn't do good and gain big this time? They averaged 934 pounds with a weighted average price of $274.26. Look at your heifers. They were a little more spread out. 643 head of 6-weight heifers averaged 660 at $305.48. 1,302 head of the 7-weight heifers averaged 750 at $285.74. There were 1,496 head of the 8-weight heifers averaged 849 at $270.90, and 450 head of the 9-weight heifers averaged 938 with a weighted average price of $254.33. Good sale there, big receipts at OKC West in El Reno, Oklahoma. Look at some other individual quotes from all around. Another DV auction broadcaster, Parsons Livestock Auction in Parsons, Kansas. They can sell them. How about 72 steers, weighed 742 in Parsons, bring 330.5. Wow, big time quote there. How about up at Stockman's and Yankton, one of our favorites too, also on DV auction. 177 steers in Yankton, South Dakota, weighed 670 and bring 376. That was a big quote. Now this one's going to open your eyes. Bluegrass Stockyards in Campbellsville, Kentucky. Not one of the biggest locations, but man, they can sell them at times, guys. They sell 61 feeder steers, weighed 913 and bring 303. Now Jim Akers had sent me a text on that, making sure that I looked for it when I did this report, and of course sticking out like a sore thumb there, I couldn't have missed it. And then soon after that, I got a text from Dwayne Mays. Talk about a blast from the past. We thought he retired at Ogallala Livestock Auction, Ogallala, Nebraska, sold out, moved out to spend time with his grandkids in Indiana. Well, it ain't that far from Indiana down to Campbellsville, Kentucky. Dwayne Mays says those were my steers I brought in there to Campbellsville. 61 head, weighed 913, bring 303. Wow, that's impressive. How about Torrington Livestock Markets in Torrington, Wyoming? 149 steers, weighed 803 at 321. You think, oh my gosh, that's almost as high as we've ever seen before. That wasn't the top one, guys. Your most impressive quote that I saw on Wednesday, and your Macrocin No BS top quote for the day, come out of Winter Livestock in Dodge City, Kansas. It was 68 steers, weighed 835 and bring 323.50. And that's your feeder flash for Thursday.